Loving Sairam and greetings from Prashanti Nilayam. Let me begin by saying that I have received one more mail regarding the issue of truth. I am happy this particular issue has exercised the minds of many listeners. And as I promised last time, I assure you that I would devote an entire talk to this topic. Now, the issue of truth and righteousness, as we see it with our limited consciousness, is a very complex issue and has to be discussed properly, taking into account various aspects and nuances. As I told you earlier, right now I do not have the time to do the necessary research and reflection and meditation, etc., to prepare such an essay, because that's what it is going to be. That said, I do promise to come up with one at a later time. Well, with that remark, let me move on to catch up with where I left you last time. As I told you, Satya was taken home to Puttaparthi from Uruvakonda for the summer vacation of 1940. And that was when he had to have that horrible experience with the witch doctor at Kadri. Well, the summer vacation was over, and Seshma Raju came to Puttaparthi to take Satya back to Uruvakonda to resume the studies in the school there. Satya did not resist. Quietly he went back with his brother to Uruvakonda, and he did not make any fuss. Obviously, he had his own timetable. A few months passed, during which there were the ups and downs as earlier, after which came the Navaratri festival. As many of you would be aware, the Navaratri festival comes usually in the late September, early October period, somewhere during that period. And it depends on the lunar calendar. Therefore, it does not come on the same day every year. But one thing is sure, whenever there is Navaratri, all schools close down, at least in India. There is a brief holiday. And since the school was closed for the festival holidays, Seshma Raju felt it might not be a bad idea to take Satya on a short outing and to a different place. Now, not far from Uruvakonda, there is a town called Hospet. And not far from Hospet are the famous ruins of the Vijayanagaram kingdom. As I told you, perhaps told you, I'm not sure whether I did, the town of Bukkapattam, which is close to Puttaparthi and where Swami studied in the early stages, is named after Bukkaraya, who was one of the founders of the Vijayanagaram kingdom, or one of the early rulers of the Vijayanagaram kingdom. The Vijayanagaram reign is very famous in Indian history, and in Hampi may be found the ruins of their kingdom. Presumably that was their headquarters. So Seshma Raju thought he would take Satya to Hospet and with his friends there, with the help of his friends there, take Satya to Hampi for a visit to the ruins. That was the general idea. So, the two brothers went to Hospet, where Satya was very warmly received because already his reputation as an extraordinary boy had reached that place. And along with some people there, the whole party then went on an excursion or a picnic to Hampi, taking some food and various other things along with them. While they were looking at all the attractions in Hampi, and there are very famous ruins, I can tell you, if I'm not mistaken, it's a World Heritage Site. Satya was not very much interested in seeing anything. Others were looking at this and that and enjoying themselves, but Satya seemed disinterested. Now the main attraction in Hampi is a temple dedicated to Lord Shiva. Shiva has many aspects and forms, and in this temple he is installed as Lord Virupaksha. So it's known as the Virupaksha temple. Interestingly, amidst the ruins, this temple was a functioning temple. So the party said, having come so far, let us go inside and have darshan of Lord Shiva. So they kept all their picnic things at a spot and took off their slippers and sandals and started going inside the temple. Satya did not make any efforts to go inside the temple. So his brother looked at him and said, "What? We are all going inside to worship Lord Shiva. Are you not coming?" He said, "No, I am not coming." No, you must come. This is a very famous temple. It will do you a lot of good." Satya said, "You please go. I'll stay here and look after all these things." That's what he said. So Sesh Maharaj gave up. He was not quite pleased. But nevertheless, he said, "Let me not kick up a fuss now," and went inside. And there was a priest there who did puja and waved the arati, and everybody was looking at the idol and worshipping the idol. And suddenly, Seshma Raju began to see the form of Satya there, his own brother Satya, and not the idol. And Satya was smiling. So Seshma Raju was taken aback. Is this an hallucination? Am I having dreams? He rubbed his eyes and looked. Satya was smiling there inside. So he sort of rushed back. It's not a very big temple, it's a small temple. He rushed out and looked here and there, looking for Satya. Satya was there, quiet, sitting, looking after all the picnic luggage. This man was taken aback. He said, "Oh, I must have made a mistake." Goes inside. Once again he sees Satya smiling. He didn't know what to make of it and gave up. And that was the end of that story. And the day was over, and they all returned back to Hampi. And from Hampi, they returned to Uravakonda, back. But it did not appear to do any good to Satya. School reopened. Satya started going to school. One morning, and that day happened to be the 20th of October, the year 1940. Satya left early for school. He started walking, went halfway, turned, and came back. After he came to the house of his brother, he knocked on the door. His sister-in-law heard the knock and opened the door. She was surprised to see Satya standing there with his bag, and she was wondering what happened. Was Satya not feeling well? What is the problem? So she began asking some questions, and hearing the conversation, Seshma Raju, who had not yet left for school, came and saw Satya standing at the door with his bag. Satya simply put the bag down and said, "I am no longer your Satya. I have work to do and people are waiting for me. I am quitting school and leaving the family as well. From now on, humanity as a whole is my family." So saying, Satya dropped the school bag, symbolic of making a total break with his education, turned and quietly walked away. Seshma Raju could not understand what was happening. It was all very quick, sudden, and certainly a traumatic experience. Satya had been very, very difficult, so to say, difficult throughout the year. And now he had dropped a bombshell. And as far as Seshma Raju was concerned, He felt as if he had been hit by a ton of bricks. All his dream had collapsed. He had built so many dreams. But Satya, going through school, going through college, getting a big job, rising very high, etc., etc. All of them crashed. Slowly he sank to the floor. Satya had left them forever, and there was no chance of the family's poverty being taken care of by Satya. Now from Seshamaraju's house, Satya walked straight to the house of one Mr. Anjaneyulu. He was a government official, I believe an excise inspector. In those days, we didn't have these big apartments. People had independent houses. They were small, but usually the houses had a garden. And Anjaneyulu, being a government servant, had a reasonably decent house with a front garden. Anjaneyulu knew about Satya. He knew about his spiritual inclination, etc., etc. So Satya was no stranger to Anjaneyulu. He just walked into their house, went into the garden, and there was a small rock there which still exists, I believe, and sat on it. Meanwhile, news rapidly spread that Satya had left home and was about to speak. Soon a small crowd collected in Anjaneyulu's garden. Now everyone expected Satya to speak. He did not speak. He just led the group in a bhajan. And we all know that bhajan. Manasa Bhajare Guru Charana. This bhajan was composed by him on the spot, and in a sense was his first message to humanity. Having left home, having renounced family, and raised the curtain. Now, we know the bhajan, but on this occasion, it is important to take a minute off, or at least a few seconds off, to recall the essence of that message. What young Satya said was, "O humans, why are you wasting time and life by immersing yourselves in trivialities? Instead, offer yourself at the feet of the Divine Master, who would be happy to be your guide and guru and lead you through the turbulences of life." That was the message. Before I proceed further, I would like to take a few seconds off to stress the fact that Swami's first message was that we should not waste our life by immersing ourselves in trivialities. This is what he said in 1940. You just look at how much time people waste in a day with their cell phones, looking at Facebook, sending tweets or whatever you call them, on the internet. It is just too much. And yet, if you are honest to ourselves, during this so-called busy day, do we think once of God? Do we thank Him even once for what He has done for us? Oh yes, we may say Brahmarpanam and all that, like a tape recorder. But we really do not take our mind off whatever surrounds us. He cautioned us against that right in the beginning. Incidentally, the spirit of that song is almost identical to what is contained in a psalm in the Bible, except that the psalm is sung by a devotee who says, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." In the Kali Yuga, people have forgotten that Lord is the shepherd. So the Lord says, "I am the shepherd, I will take care of you. Just follow me." That's the way it was. Anyway, Satya did not make any speeches on that day. And after he finished the song, the crowd just melted away. Anjaneyulu was quite taken aback by all this strange turn of events. Nevertheless, he had the presence of mind to invite Satya inside his house. And from that day onwards, Satya began to stay in his house. Seshamaraju came there and pleaded with him, "Please come back." And all that. Satya said, "No. I have taken a turn in life and I am not going back." For the next few days, staying in Anjaneyulu's house, Satya began giving darshan and singing bhajans and leading people in bhajans and also speaking to them. Incidentally, most of you would have seen a photograph of Swami in a white shirt and half trousers, sitting on the rock with a garland and a small statue of Shirdi Baba in front of him. I don't know how many of you know the story behind that picture. Since Satya was becoming something like a new Guruji, homeborn Guruji, shall I say, people in Uravakkonda became excited and a photographer came to take a photo. Back in those days, cameras were very different. They were very big, they were on a stand, and there were no shutters. There was a cap in front. The fellow would adjust the focus, etc., and then insert the plate and pull out the cap and put it back. Light will go in, and the film will get clouded. He will develop it and so on. Now, as he was adjusting this, cameraman saw a small stone about this size right in front of Satya near the feet. He tried to remove it. Satya said, "No, no, no, no. Don't remove it. I should say Swami, because by now people began to recognize him as Satya Sai Baba, the reincarnation of Shirdi Baba." So he said, "Let the stone be there. You just take the picture." Picture was taken, and when the photographer developed the picture, he was surprised to see that there was a small statue of Shirdi Baba. So that gave some, what you call, confirmation that the one called Satya was Shirdi Baba come again. You might recall that earlier, when somebody challenged him, his father rather, challenged him, "Who are you?" He threw flowers. Flowers said, "Sai Baba." Now, he explained that he was Shirdi Sai Baba come again in fulfillment of a promise. Satya also began giving discourses. Discourses were very simple, and they were aimed at making people realize their spiritual roots. Because we have all forgotten that essentially we are divine in nature. It is to remind us of that for many years Swami used to begin his discourses with the words Divyatma Swarupalara, meaning embodiments of the divine Atma. He didn't say ladies and gentlemen and things like that. No matter who it was, even included, it might be even the President of India, he would simply say Divyatma Swarupalara. Later, he changed it to Prema Swarupalara, because Swami identified himself totally with love, and he wanted to remind us that Atma and love are synonymous, and that love is in us also. So he addressed us as Prema Swarupalara, which would always be translated as embodiments of divine love. While all this was going on, Seshamaraju became desperate. Remember, he had taken his younger brother Satya with him to Kamalapuram and Uravakkonda on the assurance that he would ensure that Satya got a good education. But what had happened? Satya dropped out of school, and you could not prevent it. He dashed off a telegram to his father, asking him to come immediately. Now you might wonder, how on earth does one send a telegram to Puttaparthi, which I have described was in the middle of nowhere? Well, by 1940, telegraphic service had become available in a few places. And you could send telegram through those offices. So a telegram to Puttaparthi would actually go to a place called Penukonda, which is about 25 kilometers or so from Puttaparthi. And a fellow from the telegraph office would come on a cycle and deliver the telegram. I have seen that in the 40s. So that's how a telegram came. And if you didn't know English, somebody would have to translate it for you, because telegrams are always sent in English. So a telegram was sent to Pedda Venkamaraju, and once they learnt what had happened, Pedda Venkamaraju and Ishwarama rushed to Uravakonda. And when they came to Uravakonda, they went to Seshmaraju's house. And when they learned that Satya was no longer staying there but with Anjaneyulu, they went to Anjaneyulu's house. Ishwarama became deeply worried hearing what was happening. She feared that Satya, her dear son Satya, or Satyam as she used to call him sometime, might become a sannyasi. You know, Indian monks, they renounce the house, they renounce family, then they wear an ochre robe and start wandering all over India, or go and live in caves, or even go to the Himalayas. So this lady was terrified, petrified, that she is going to lose Satya, whom she had got after doing so much puja to Lord Satyanarayana. She began to argue with Satya and made him give a promise. She said, "You were born after so many prayers of mine. I don't object to your leaving school. I am not bothered about your desire to lead a spiritual life. Maybe it is divinely ordained. But I just cannot bear being away from you. So you have to promise me, here and now, that no matter what, you will stay in Puttaparthi near me always." That is what Ishwarama demanded of Satya. Swami heard her out patiently and gave her the assurance that he would always remain in Puttaparthi. And as we all know, he fulfilled that assurance and promise in abundant measure. Satya had decided he is not going to study. It was clear he was going to lead a spiritual life. And he had also promised that he would stay in Puttaparthi. Plans were then made to return from Uravakonda to Puttaparthi. And in this process, the curtain had finally been drawn. It had come down on one face of the avatar, and another face of the avatar was being unfolded. It was something very beautiful, but people did not realize what was happening at that time. He might have been in his teens. In fact, he was just 14 at that time. But Swami had a very heavy agenda ahead of him that he would slowly unfold and unfold later. But the first priority was to go back to where he came from. Satyanarayana Raju, who had left Puttaparthi in order to study along with his elder brother, came back to his native hamlet as Sri Satya Sai Baba, traveling along with his parents in a bullock cart. Now it takes quite a long time to come from Uravakonda Puttaparthi by bullock cart. Distance is substantial and bulls cannot travel all that distance like a bus can quickly. So they had to make a few stops along the way. And everywhere news had spread. And people would gather, welcome them, offer them hospitality, and worship Swami, and so on and so forth. In other words, even before he came back home, he had to start giving darshans. It became an almost essential part of his daily life and never stopped till the very end. Now, Swami's return to Puttaparthi was not without problems. His first problem was that he had to go back to his own house. He said, I am leaving home. He had no option but to go back there. He didn't like it. But Swami did not see this as a big difficulty. For him, everything was a passing cloud. And he expected that pretty soon he would have his own living place separate from house and family. That was his decision, that was his intention, that was his sankalpa. It was going to happen. But it was not going to happen immediately. It would happen in its own way, according to its own timetable, and via events which he had himself ordained. So that's how it was going to take place. I'm mentioning all this because the moment that Swami came back to Puttaparthi, people began to come to his house for darshan. Pedda Venkama house was so small, he could not give darshan. It was too small. So there was a problem right at the start. However, there was also a fix to the problem. Right next to hut in which Pedda Venkama lived was the house of Karnam Lakshmi Narayana. And he was destined to play a role, an important role at this point. You see, in God's drama, many people appear and then they go. All who appear have some role or the other to play. Very few play a role from beginning to end. That opportunity is given only to a few. Others come, they play an important role and then go away. Or some like Hanuman come rather late and stay till the end. I'm mentioning all this because between 1940 and 1950, the Karnam's family played a very important role in what happened in Swami's life and in Puttaparthi. Now, this Karnam was a village official. You must remember I am talking of British India, and back then villages were neglected, but they were the backbone of British India because most of the taxes came to the British from the agricultural crop, and crops were produced by villagers. The village was controlled by an administration which was presided by a man called the village Munsif. The village Munsif was usually the wealthiest and the most important man in the village. The British appointed him as village Munsif. Now there was a reason why they appointed the richest and the wealthiest and the best known man in the village as the Munsif, because if he did not collect taxes, they could take away his property. So that was the reason. Not that he had other qualifications. Usually the most important family in the village would traditionally be holding the post of the village Munsif. The village Munsif used to be assisted by several officials, the most important of whom was known as the Karnam. He used to keep the accounts. I have lived in a village. My uncle on my mother's side was a village Munsif, and I have seen his Karnam. And apart from the Karnam, there were a few others. And there was one man whose job was to sort of beat the drums. In those days, if you had to make a public announcement, this fellow would wear a drum like this and go on beating it, walking the streets. And when people heard the drum beat, they would all come out. And then he will say, make an announcement. He will say tomorrow the district medical officer is coming, go there, whatever is the announcement. And interestingly, when the Gram Seva program was started by Swami in the year 2000, he asked all our institute people to instruct the village people to announce that there will be Grama Seva by this age-old method of, public announcements. There was no loudspeaker, there was no other PA system. You could not do it through television, radio and all that. Now I'm mentioning all this to just draw your attention to the fact that Puttaparthi was so small, it did not have a village munsi. The Karnam was literally one-man show. Maybe he had one or two small subordinates to make announcements and clean and the village and so on. This Karnam Lakshmi Narayana's family lived next door to Pedda Venkamaraja's family. There were two barriers that were separating them. The first was an economic barrier. The Karnam was a rich man. He had a lot of property and all that. Pedda Venkamaraju was not a rich man. So, there was an economic inequality. Secondly, Karnam was a Brahmin, the highest caste, whereas the Rajus were of a lower caste. So given that these two barriers, there should have been little communication between Karnam's family and Pedda Venkamaraju's family. However, that was not so. Now this Karnam Lakshmi Narayana had a very devoted wife named Subbamma. Subbamma figures very prominently in the early life of Swami, especially the period 1940 to 1950 and a little beyond. She was childless, so the Karnam married another lady named Kamalamma. She was also childless, and later on they adopted a boy. That's a different story. Subbamma knew Satya from the day he was born. As a neighbor, she just called to see the newborn baby, and the moment she saw the baby, she knew there was something exceptional. However, that was not a widely known fact, and there was this caste barrier, and her relatives objected her going to the house of someone who was of lower caste. So Subbamma had a lot of problem spending time with Satya. She would devise various means whereby Satya would come to her house for doing some work or the other, and whenever he came, she would give him some sweets or something she made specially for him. I don't know whether I told you, this Subbamma's house had a west-facing wall in which there was a window, and that window looked out into the backyard of Pedda Venkamaraju's house. So she would make sweets and other things, wait near the window, and when Satya came there, she would say, "Psst, come here, I've got some sweet for you," and give it to him. All that was before. Now, Satya had come back to Uravakonda as a spiritual master, as the reincarnation of Satya Sai, Shirdi Sai Baba. So she boldly said, "He is Guru, he is God. I don't care what people say, I am going to serve him." And the first thing she did was, she told her husband, "Look, there is no place in his house. So many people are coming there. So let him, during the daytime, come and spend the entire day here. We will keep a room for him." And she conveyed this to Satya. He accepted the suggestion and the offer. So every day, early morning, Satya, I should say Swami, I beg your pardon, would come to Subbamma's house, take his bath, and stay in the room. Throughout the day he would be there. And when people came, he would come into the central hall, grant darshan, talk to them, and if he wanted to give interview, he would take them to his room, and so on. He would also eat there. And he would go back only at night to his hut to sleep. Now, this was not all. During the day, throughout, no matter who came, Subhama would make food for them and feed them. She made it her duty to feed every devotee who came to see Swami. And Swami was beginning to attract more and more people. And this placed a great burden on Subhama. But Subhama did not whimper even once. She did not make the slightest complaint. Sometimes, she would have to cook till late at night in order to feed the visitors. I have heard Swami himself describe this many a time. She never complained. But Swami was getting somewhat uncomfortable. He did not like to place any burden on Subhama. But circumstances were such that he had apparently no other option but to give darshan in Subhama's house, and through that process place a big burden on Subhama. Of course, if you look in retrospect, that was his way of giving Subhama a chance to serve him. These are all previously ordained, and the service is rendered in many ways by many people, each according to his merit or her merit and deservedness. Now, at the human level, Swami did not like placing such a big burden on Subhama. So, from time to time, he began to leave Puttaparthi, go away on a visit. By this time many people began coming, and among the people who used to come to Swami to have his darshan were wealthy people, including Rajas and Maharajas, Zamindars. They would all say, please come to our place in such and such a town. It may be Mysore, it may be Bangalore, it may be Madras or whatever. And using those invitations as an excuse, Swami would disappear from Puttaparthi for maybe 1 week, 2 weeks, 10 days, and things like that. However, after the trip was over, Swami would return to Puttaparthi, and it would be back to square one for him, in the sense that he would have to give darshan in Subhama's house and tax her. Swami was becoming increasingly uncomfortable with this arrangement, and yet there seemed no way out. But he had to find a way out. Did he find a way out? If so, what was it? I am sure you are anxious to know that, but I also need something to say the next time, so I will reserve it for the next time. So with that, I bring this talk to a close, and I thank you for having been with me today. I hope you like the series. Many have written to say that they do, but then you can never be sure that the next one is also as interesting as the previous one. I hope it is, at any rate, and with that I take your leave. But not before offering this talk to Swami, something which I do every time. Thank you, God bless you, and Jai Sai Ram.